Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sky Blue Summit powered by Dell. My name is Kristana Ciabatoni. I am the Director of Media and Strategic Communications at Sky Blue Media. We are really excited to have you all here tonight for part 2 of our summit, Clouds of Creativity, Content Curation During Crisis. Just a few reminders before we get started while we're watching. Make sure that you are submitting your questions to the Q&A box. We want to make this very interactive, and we want to make sure that we are having the conversation that you want to hear and that we are giving you tactical takeaways. Definitely share a little bit about yourself using the polls and the notes section. And do not forget, there is a chance to win a working from home package. We are giving away a Dell laptop thanks to our partner. And we are also giving away a week of meals. We all need that right now. So to enter, it's really easy. You just have to make sure your Instagram profile is public and share a post to your feed, not your story, to your feed so everyone can see. And make sure you hashtag Sky Blue Summit, you tag Sky Blue Media, and you tag Dell. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to our fearless leader, the founder and CEO of Sky Blue Media, Rakia Reynolds.
Thanks, Kristana. Well, I'm so excited to see you all here in what we call our Zoom room, and thank you for responding to the ask of joining this this roundtable of creatives. So, a couple of things that we have been talking about, and I'm going to open it up to you guys, is just like this moment right now. We all know what we're faced with. None of us have ever been through anything like this before. And no one has the answer. So the goal of this conversation is to just give folks, your POV and your perspective of things that you're seeing and things that you're doing. And the reason I've convened all of you is because I do think that you are great experts in your field and noticing some of the work that you're doing with your communities and with your brand. So I think I'll just start there and let you all, because you're your own best storyteller, let you guys talk about who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into some specific questions. So we like to play a game of left or right. Ernest, you're to my right, so why don't you start?
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here in Rakia and Sky Blue Media. Thanks for having me. As Rakia said, my name is Ernest James. I'm the founder and chief management officer at NOIRE Management. We basically are a diversity inclusive talent and marketing agency. We broker branding and digital deals for multicultural talent, helping them find opportunities to create branded, sponsored content on digital platforms while aiding in the development of their offline brands. So that's what we do in a nutshell.
Awesome.
And then to my right is going to be Jan.
Hi, how are you? I'm Jane from California. Thank you again, Rakia, for inviting me to speak. It's really amazing to be amongst this incredible group of people. We are from California, and our organization is called Unveil Our Story. We are specifically a group to help connect Asian American Pacific Islander women, create community. So we hope that this conversation opens up some other conversations about what we can do to combat that.
Awesome. Thanks.
To my right is actually Ernest. So let's go to Patrice.
Hello, everyone. My name is Patrice Peck. I'm a journalist, a cultural critic. I'm based in New York City, in Brooklyn, typically. However, during this pandemic, I've been in Los Angeles, and I recently launched Coronavirus News for Black Folks. It's a newsletter about the coronavirus pandemic and disease as it relates to the Black community throughout the world. And to my left, right, you both gone. So right beneath me is Dr. Natalie.
Hi, thanks, Patrice. My name is Natalie Nixon. I'm really happy to be here. I am the president of Figure 8 Thinking, and I'm a creativity strategist. And in my work, I advise leaders at organizations, and I also serve a strategic advisory role to a lot of individuals on how to amplify creativity and apply it for strategic gain. Creativity, in our view, is not some woo-woo frilly add-on, but it's actually a competency that we are all hardwired to have. And when we think about the future of work and this fourth industrial revolution, it's critical that we all get really good at exercising and being attuned to our creative capacity. My second book comes out in June. I'm really excited about it. It's called The Creativity Leap. Thank you. And it's The Creativity Leap, Unleash Curiosity, Improvisation, and Intuition at Work. And I will soon, this summer, be launching an online creativity course helping highly ambitious professionals to map their creative journeys and go from an idea to action.
Ooh.
And now I'd love to introduce Mr. Gianni Lee.
Hi, how you doing? I'm Gianni Lee. I'm from West Philadelphia. I'm a fine artist and designer. I guess I got my start in Los Angeles. I had a clothing line, and a lot of notable people wore it. I decided to get into fine art, and I moved to New York, and I've been pretty much in the between stages of, you know, getting fine art into galleries, spaces, and having those conversations on the academic level about my work, and kind of like fusing activism and the Black experience into art. And at the same time, partnering with a lot of different brands such as Levi's, Nike, the list goes on. So right now in the middle, and I'm multi-hyphenate, so I do things outside of that, but primarily fine art and design is my specialty.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. We've got some powerful people in the Zoom room tonight. One of the quotes we've been sort of circulating as a team, and something we've been sort of iterating on, is this notion of you are not working from home, you are working at home, you're at home during a crisis trying to work. So I'm sure you all have seen some iteration of that, and wanted to understand, because you are all in the world of creativity, if we could all just go around the room and just talk about sort of how you've shifted or what you're doing at this time to sort of cope or transfer some of the creative work you've been doing. Ernest,
I'll start. Yeah. Yeah. Well, for myself, I first and foremost in work, I am an artist and a designer as well, just like you, Gianni. However, because of the nature of my work is based on clients and what I can do on set for them or for their specific events and activations, it's really difficult to get there right now. So what I've been doing recently professionally is literally taking a step back. It's been hard to do that because I'm constantly on the go for the majority of my day. And so to take a step back, it really helps me to reevaluate a lot of things that I'm doing within my business and within my creative work, and also constantly trying to see what that flow looks like, maybe outside of this, because patterns have officially changed. So it's not something that we are used to, and it's unprecedented. So I have to keep that in mind. And along with Unveil Our Story, we had to pull back on a lot of things because it was an actual in-person, 200 in-person event. So that was a completely different strategy that we're trying to work through right now. But it's basically, for myself, really taking a step back and looking at it from a bird's eye view.
I'm right there with you, Jane. And I think for a lot of our clients, what's happening is, you know, when you're in talent management and that agent world of basically finding food for people to eat and work, there is always some level of pandemic that personally someone's going through, right? There's something that personally artists go through during any time that other people may not see, that they're feeling uninspired, they're not really ready to work. And the agent, the manager, the publicist, the assistant, the friends are behind them, like, you have to do this. You said you want to do this. So I think what's happening now for a lot of our clients is collectively and globally, everyone's on pause. Everyone's uninspired. So we're all finding new ways to just be creative. And there's a little bit of pressure in terms of, who am I during this time, right? I think we all have found that artists are, at the core, artists who have created art to be consumed that will inspire people, but they actually make money off of it. So in a way, a lot of artists that may have made money and basically made a living off of their art, they're now saying, am I a true artist? In the sense of, I don't feel inspired because I'm not able to make money off of it. So a lot of my clients are almost, you know, trying to get back to the root of, well, why did I get into, you know, doing what I said I was doing? You know, yes, this was what has sustained my lifestyle up until this point, but now I don't even feel inspired to do it because I'm not going to make money off of it. So was I truly an artist to begin with? So I am finding that even within my own business, I've decided that people will get 75% of me, because when the world is on, they get 150%. Like, we're constantly going. So I'm just trying to find ways to reserve that 25% for fear, anxiety, sleep, you know, times that I get emotional, because the ambiguity is real for us.
Right.
Well, that's interesting for me, because I'm in a similar situation, and like I said before, this is why I reiterated the fine art and the commercial side of art. For me, I had a lot of projects on the table. I had a lot of projects in works, and I had a lot of projects that were done, you know, campaigns, etc., that now are either on hold, suspended, or they don't even know if they're going to happen. So now that's the commercial side of that. The only thing about, you know, commercialization and fine art is the fact that things are fast, and they need to be done at a fast rate. So a lot of times as an artist, when you're working with commercial brands and things like that, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not, things happen fast. So it's not always like your best work. So I'm finding now during the pandemic, I'm able to spend more time on things that could mean more later. I just had to have that, you know, and like the same for you and the artists that you represent. They would just have to have that confidence that what they're working on, that they're able to put more time and energy, because they have nothing but time now. That might be even, you know, you don't have anything but time. So maybe now that work might be even more amazing because you spent more time on it. So it's the I guess it's just what I tell myself. It's like, now I just have the time to work on new projects or new concepts that I didn't really get to jump into because I took so much time with the commercial things that need to get done fast. You know, with commercial, somebody could hit you with a project that's launching next week, and they might need deliverables from you in 2 days. And that might take away from that big giant piece that you wanted to do. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's giving me this time to, you know, pretty much just become like a one-stop shop and just make that content. So when things open back up, I already have like cards to play with. I already have my hand in front of me. So
stay ready, you ain't gotta get ready.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
I wanted to build on all these great points about the pause that we all have to go to. I have kind of a flip the paradigm on the value of the pause. I'm a global speaker, and so clearly a lot of my work has been postponed, rescheduled, or going to digital format. So in the past 5 weeks, I've been in a real mode of sharing and giving. So I have been giving free webinars. I share all my content, all my slides.
Thank you.
The videos are free. And I tuned into a free webinar yesterday that Tiffany Boda, who is an executive at Salesforce, gave in collaboration with Big Speak, a speakers bureau that I work with. And she was explaining that this pandemic that we're in is considered something called a black swan. So unlike in 2008, when it was the horrible financial crisis, there were actually little indicators and clues that something might go amiss financially. In a black swan event, there are no clues. We just get slapped upside the head like with a big tsunami. So one of the things, the way I define creativity, it's that it's our ability to toggle between wonder and rigor to solve problems.
Right.
And one of the aspects of wonder is pause. And everyone who's spoken, and we need to hear from Patrice, has mentioned that there's actually some benefit in slowing down, right? Creativity loves constraints. Creativity loves when, I mean, it can be high pressured and stressful, but creativity loves when we have the constraint of time, of limited resources. That's when often our best work pushes through. So the pause, and I've been encouraging people to kind of have pause lists, is actually something that we can convert into something really positive and a new skill for post-COVID, I think, in my opinion.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah. Patrice would love to hear, just to hear your reactions to that.
Yeah, I mean, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. In terms of the working from home and the, notion of productivity, I would say, honestly, before this all started, I was freelance. I was a freelance journalist. I still am. I left BuzzFeed, where I'd been for almost 3 years, last November. So, but from then up till now, freelance journalist. And so I've been working from home already. I've been spending a lot of time alone. I had to motivate myself to do the pitches because no one else was doing it for me. These days with media, you don't have a bunch of editors typically reaching out to you saying, write this, write that. So you kind of got to grind and go out and get your stories. However, I had also been the same way that Dr. Natalie Nixon had mentioned.
Natalie is fine.
Oh, sorry. Natalie had been indicating that, or her had mentioned that there have been these indicators that something might happen like this again. There have been indicators of the media industry going through this crazy shift. As I don't know if you noticed, there have been a bunch of media companies that have been laying off people, like tons. And so a lot of journalists like myself, we've been thinking like, how do we create our own like independent platforms so that we're not dependent on these publications, and we're not out here grinding, pitching stories for the sake of it for money, as opposed to, like you were saying, for your artists, are you doing it for the money, or are you doing it for what you love? Like what,
right.
what are the motivators? And so when, during this pandemic, I was like, all right, now is a good time, I guess, to maybe go after my independent, to sort of pursue what it would look like if I were to be an independent journalist, supporting myself and building my own audience as opposed to relying on other publications' audiences. But then at the same time, I was like, I knew that the coronavirus disease was going to impact the Black community at a much worse extent, just because it said, people with pre-existing conditions were going to be severely impacted. And so I wanted to do something, and so I figured, okay, let me join these two. I've been wanting to do a newsletter. I wanted to be valuable, and that was how my newsletter was born. And so it wasn't so much like, oh, I feel like I need to be productive. I felt like I wanted to contribute something, and it just turned out that I think I was lucky enough that, writing is something that you can do online, and everyone's online now. And it just worked out, I guess.
I think you bring up a good point, Patrice, because I always tell my clients, and I say this all the time, it's like, we are like your contractor that's going to build the extension to your home, right? We're going to bring in all the bricks to build whatever that extension looks like. So when we do jobs, we say, are they brand building or bank building? Are they, getting you a higher rate, or are they going to put you in a light that makes you, that much more marketable? But really what we're doing is just trying to give you all the leverage you need to build the community that you control. Because look at social media. I think Instagram, like everyone's upset that Instagram knocks you off after an hour on their lives. Instagram is down. It can't keep up with that many people on the platform. So it's almost like, influencers for the most part, or people that command an audience on a platform that they don't own. We're telling them, where's your newsletter? Where's your website? Like, how are you communicating with these people when people are taking time away from social media because there's just too much, there's like a social media overload. So how are you staying connected? So I think it's so important now in this time when everyone's on pause to build that newsletter. Just say, hey, here's my splash page. Give me your email address to keep up with me. And that takes 30 minutes of your time, but now you can control what audience metrics and all the things that you own from the audience that you built on someone else's platform.
Yeah, Ernest,
I think that's so smart.
I love the brand building versus bank building, because we talk a lot about trust and authenticity in Blue media and positioning our clients in that way. I'd be interested, Patrice, a couple of folks, so people want to know, one, how do they gain access to your newsletter? I would tell folks to follow you. So we want to call out your Instagram handle, because for those of you who are always looking for a pitch, Patrice did a very interesting carousel on her Instagram and cataloged, and I thought it was really creative. You cataloged like, here's the story that I got in the New York Times, snaps and claps for that. this is what I did, this is how I did it, this is the email of how I've done it, and this is how you can do it as well. So I think, you know, folks do want the tactical takeaways of how to stay creative. You know, one of the things that I know people want to know is that when you aren't motivated, you know, we talk about a lot of podcasts and things that we listen to in the morning, or how are we, you know, sort of setting the tone so that we have a really good day. Where are you all drawing inspiration from right now?
Oh, that's a good question.
I would say,
go ahead.
Okay. Mainly Instagram. Just because, and I said this in a recent interview, like I get so much inspiration from all the different Black people who are on Instagram, just like the imagery, the inspirational content. Ziva Blay is someone who I follow.
Oh,
like,
I love Ziva Blay.
Yes, she just started a newsletter. You know what I mean? She's a culture writer at HuffPost, senior culture writer, I believe, at HuffPost, and she was inspirational to me because on her Instagram page recently, she's currently working on a book about carefree Black girls, and she decided she was kind of didn't want to post selfies anymore or like photos of her house, which is like, first of all, that's cool if you do, it's your page, post what you want to post, but she felt like it wasn't what she wanted to do anymore. So she started just posting some of the Black women throughout history who inspired like the purpose of her book. Exactly. And she said she noticed like this huge surge in like followers, and she also launched a newsletter during this time. And it's just like that moment. I feel like a lot of us can speak to that, of just where things just fit right because you're like in your purpose, but it's also like your passion. And I will say, I know it's very easy. So many people say that, and it's like, okay, well, how do I find that? You know what I mean? How do I figure out what that is? But I will just say, try things out, because to 100, I was like, oh, when I was thinking about starting a newsletter, I was like, I want to do a newsletter. Everybody and their mother is doing a newsletter, especially now. I'm a be like corny, like no one's gonna follow it. And I honestly, when I started coronavirus news for Black folks on April 5th, I didn't expect as many people to support and subscribe as they've done so far. I think we have a little over 200 right now, but I was shocked. I literally just did it because I was like, I feel like this news should be aggregated in a particular way, and I don't see it happening. And just knowing the media landscape, there's not enough of us out there that can make something like this happen. So let me try and do it myself.
I mean, we're the same as you, Patrice. Like, our main basis for Unveil Our Story is where we gather creative Asian American women together to create this community. And so we were initially doing that in the in-person events that we were doing. And we were thinking, okay, this is great. There's a really good, following. There's a lot of people that want to be part of this. And then all of a sudden this thing hit, and we were thinking, what do we do? And this pause that we're having to go through is actually, it's very stressful. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to downplay anything, because I think that the stress is on another level. It's this idea that we're trying to learn how to live a new life. And whether it's going to be a long-term thing or just an initial disruption within our lives, it's going to change something, right? So our main focus was, how do we create a community within something that was supposed to be created through, this in-person event, but how do we create it online? And I think the way that we packaged it was a digital care package, which is basically a newsletter, but we framed it in a different title. So it's exactly what you're doing. And we wanted to do this because my inspiration that I gained was from our community, which was our speakers, the sponsors that we work with, our partners that we were working with. And we have so many people that were writing books. They were producing their own workshops. They were being out there creating this content for themselves and their own communities, that we were thinking, how do people know about this and not know about this? And so we decided to create this entire digital care package, which is literally just a downloadable newsletter. And it has resources from all of our speakers. We have things about mindfulness, about taking a pause, because this is the perfect time to understand that if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of the communities and the people around you. So that was a big thing for us. And mainly just to kind of see the bigger picture in that if we don't take care of each other, the communities that we're within are not going to grow and not going to flourish later. So our main thing was to just combat in any way we can. And so going forward, we're able to just grow this digital care package. And in May, it's a huge month for us, which is Asian American History Month. And then there's Mother's Day. And then there's Small Business Week from the 16th to 20th. So we have all these things in place where we can play off of and really be thinking outside of the box on how do we serve our communities and to the best of our abilities, and so that they can flourish too.
Yeah. Before we answer some of the questions in the chat, Gianni, I would love to hear, I know folks want to know where you're drawing inspiration from, because you are, again, you are showing different signs of creativity by your paintings and doing your music.
So I guess for me, art is like it's like my full-time job. So in order for me to have, the only way I can make money is to have paintings or to have artistic expressions that I can then pull from to create things commercially from. So in order to have that, I have to constantly be inspired. So it's like something that I kind of like pride myself in, almost like as a sport, on ways in ways that we don't necessarily think about on how to get just how to get new inspiration. And it's all about like what we put into our brains. So if we go out of our way to kind of like read more books, learn a sport, learn an extracurricular activity, just you know, basically turn our brains back into the sponges that it was when we were younger. I think that's where we can draw our inspiration from. I think what we need to realize as humans is that we can draw inspiration from anywhere in any industry. It doesn't matter if you a painter, a writer, a mechanic, a entrepreneur. Like, these ideas you can get from like any different areas. And I remember a quote I was watching, I think the September issue with Anna Winter, and she said that every day that she gets up and she gets into the car service to go to the office, she always looks outside, because she gets a lot of her ideas from just taking that time and looking out the window before she goes into, you know, the office, just the hectic nature of it. Sometimes like that space isn't that creative for her, even though she's probably around the most creative people in the industry. It's like that moment before is when. So I just wanted to share like a few books that I've like purposely went out my way to like acquire that kind of like keep me going. So it's this one book right here. It's called WK Interact. So it's really just about a street artist, and it's a street artist that pretty much recorded his process. So when you look through the book, you see just different sketches, but he then takes these sketches and he blows them up, and he actually turns them into like wall pieces that he puts on walls and buildings. And he shows toys that he's designed. He shows, you know, actual installations on walls. So I'm a street artist too. So this stuff is like inspirational to me, but also I'm now learning ways to implement my street art in different ways from someone who's already did it, because I went out my way to like actually read the book. So also the same thing, Salvador Dali is like one of my favorite artists. And while I don't really like looking at other artists, because I don't want to actually like inadvertently steal their aesthetic, sometimes just seeing, you know, it's weird. But sometimes seeing how another person's mind thinks could help you get to the idea of like what your next collection may be, or maybe it's a song you're writing, or it's a book idea, or it's a movie, or maybe it's a new business that you wanted to start. Because I'm sorry, I can't see all the names, but yeah, Jane, you talked about a digital. What did you call it? A digital
care package. Fancy name for our newsletter.
Yeah, so
it
like
is a care package though.
But I thought about that, and I'm like, what if people from different industries had digital care packages? Okay, I'm fighting with inspiration. I need more inspo during this time. Like, I need other resources. So someone sends me a digital care package with links to this, or resources, or new brushes for Procreate on the iPad, things like that. Because a lot of my artist friends, we share links all the time. Like, we'll share links to just color theory and photos from magazines and the things like that just get our mind racing, and we just come up with ideas. And I think, like, you know, I'm just really adamant about it because it's really important during this time, because, you know, sitting in a room after a while, just, you know, it gets kind of stale, and you need to, like, you know, you need to jump out of that and, like, figure out some other things to do. So, yeah.
I think that's so important, and I think that's the basis of this conversation, right? Like, building community during a pandemic. Like, we've all given care packages. Like, I'm sure all of us have, like, group chats where we're like, go see this movie. Are you watching Little Fires Everywhere? Like, all these things we've naturally, the world moves by word of mouth. That's why everyone has, like, taken to influencers, like adding salt to, like, it's missing something. Throw an influencer in there. So it's like, now I think what we're realizing is, like, this is the time to do it. Like, you can go and onto Instagram and see all these people are just like, hey, I'm available. All I have is time. So now is the time for you to reach out. If you're trying to do a podcast, a newsletter, whatever it is, it's like someone is willing to exchange resources or information, right? Before, people held it so close to the chest because we were afraid that we were going to give away the one job that we would get that week. Or that.
But Ernest, one of the I'm sorry to cut you off, but one of the most important things you said, was the idea of I basically just owning your audience. So and it's funny because Rakia brought it up that I said something on Instagram about TikTok, and
that's what I was gonna ask.
Like, so like I have a love-hate relationship with it, because I feel like, you know, as people of color, I think we spend too much time on it versus, you know, we should have our own site or something that we can go to that we can, like, capitalize off or monetize off of. So that's why I'm saying, like, you know, say if you did a TikTok, maybe sometimes you could send newsletters out of new TikToks that you've done. Just kind of like create this relationship and just community with the people that actually follow and support, because that could lead to dollars later on. I remember Ryan Leslie, he developed a platform that makes it text messaging. It makes it very easy just to communicate with your fans directly. And I think that's important during this time. So a lot of times it's hard for me. I like to hoard a lot of, like, my content and my art because sometimes it just doesn't make sense to me as a business person or as an artist to just give someone, like, what was that?
Sorry, traffic.
Oh, that's okay. A motorcycle.
Right? I'm like, but it just doesn't make sense all the time just to give, you know, these brands this content for free when the government is just going to bail them out while you still have to, like, fight for where your next check's going to come from to pay your rent. So a lot of times it's just like we have to take just maybe just an extra 2 steps. But I really think that's important.
No, I like that. I mean, when I saw you tweet that, I was like, I'm going to text Gianni, but no, I'll wait until he's in the Zoom room with us, because I saw where you were going with it. I just thought that there are some folks that cope in different ways, and sometimes TikTok might be a little bit of a, you know, like an escapist method for you to just dance and have some fun. But I see both sides to it. Natalie, I know someone dropped something in the chat for you to answer, but would love to maybe get your sort of perspective on where people can draw sources of inspiration. Everybody sort of gave an example, but where do you think people can draw their sources of inspiration now? And then if you can go into the next question.
Sure. So I love this quote by Pablo Picasso, who said, inspiration exists, but it has to find you working. And one of the biggest misconceptions about creativity, which is why, in my opinion, artists have been kind of burdened with being the creatives, when in fact, all of us have this capacity, is that we look at it as a kind of mystical, magical occurrence. But creativity requires a lot of grinding. It requires a lot of work. It can be very solitary. It's not sexy. And then you also have to design in the space and time for what I call the wonder. And one of the ways I have been remaining inspired and creative is I was trained in dance since age 4. And so I still, in my ripened middle-age years, still dance. And I take a regular virtual dance classes through Dance Fit, which is a dance studio here in Philly. I'm from Philly, and we are a city where we have one of the highest ratios of access to green space. So whether you live in the hood or you live in a kind of a Tony neighborhood, you do have access to creeks and trails. And
Yep.
I take a dip into the woods, even if it's for 5 minutes every single day. And this may sound corny, but I don't really care. I took a little walk today and I paused at a tree. I'm not playing. I said to myself, what can I find inspiring about this tree? And I look at this tree, it had the craziest branches. Some of the branches are going straight out, some are going down, and then they had another branch going this way. And for me, it was just this incredible metaphor about how growth can come in so many different directions. Designers would take something like that,
Wow.
design another type of furniture, or experienced designers would take that as a way to call together different stakeholders. So for me, movement, getting, even in the time of COVID, getting out of the building, as Gianni pointed out with Anna Wintour, she looks out of the window. You have to be super observant in these times of pause. And I think getting into the next question about, 30, 60, 90 days into our new normal, because it will not be the same anymore. The biggest takeaway for me is to really optimize on the exploration of types of strategic partnerships that we are all exploring. Some of these strategic partnerships are virtual. So it sounds like one of Gianni's strategic partners is Salvador Dali. Cool. Other people's strategic partners might be really interesting thought leaders. Like, I'm reading a really amazing book called Essentialism. And it's by Greg McKeown. I think Greg wrote, no, I'm thinking someone else wrote Still Like an Artist. But this is a really good book. It's about really paring things down to what matters. And how it is such a much more expansive, abundant way to live when you really take the time and effort to edit down. Anyway, our strategic partners can come on these virtual realms. And also we are kind of forced to now connect with a whole range of people. So Jane and Patrice, with your newsletters, you are connecting now with people with whom you would have never formally connected. So I think that on a functional level, coming out of this is that we will understand what really matters. How many meetings do we actually need to have? Right?
That's a word right there.
Exactly. What really matters? How can we connect on a strategic level? Who are our brand mentors that are existing in the world right now, who have existed in the past, who aren't in our same geographic space? And then really on an emotional, spiritual level, really being attuned to the pause. Our bodies, our minds need it, and we actually end up more productive. Last thing I just wanted to say is that I put into the chat the link to McKinsey has a really great
read it. Yeah, it's great. You put it in there. It's a good study.
It's a study of the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on African Americans. So really encourage people to check it out. Thank you.
Well, speaking of strategic partners, so there are a couple of questions that came in. So let's just do some rapid fire things now. You brought up a good point about strategic partners, and the way that Skai Blue Media likes to operate, we always bring great thought partners in. Natalie, you were one of our first thought partners, bringing different kinds of people into the tent so that everyone can learn firsthand. And I think, so I just wanted to tell the folks that we brought Ernest in as a strategic partner for influencer engagement because he's an expert and he has his own agency, NOIRE Management. As a strategic partner, Ernest, what are you noticing in terms of influencers right now and how they are creating? And maybe if you can just quickly touch upon where you see them drawing inspiration from. And if there are things I know a lot of folks will say Instagram, that's where I'm drawing a lot of my inspiration from. Yeah. But if there are other things that you see the influencers that you're working with or work with, maybe just give the folks some takeaways.
Yeah, like one of my clients now, she's always talked about creating some type of e-course. I don't know, these e-courses and these master classes, it's just like I'm so overwhelmed by them. Just to be completely honest, it's like everyone does one job and now they're an expert and now they sell like $100 courses, but that's none of my business. But my client has clearly built a digital presence, right? And people are like, oh, how do I everyone wants to be an influencer. It's like, again, influencer is the salt added to everything. Creator, influencer, the words are tangible, but like we're all influencers in a sense because we influence another person's decision. It could be a best friend, it could be a family member. You're an influencer. You don't have to be paid to be an influencer. But there are people that influence a large platform and then are paid, which are clients that I work with. So one of my clients has decided in this time she's going to create, you know, a resource that people pay to attend, and she's showing them this is how you digitally brand yourself. Now, the information she's giving to other people may be very like 1, 2, 3 ABCs of social media. But if you're not in that space and you only kind of dibble and dabble and you're on Instagram scrolling, knowing how to properly create a story on the Mojo app could be mind-blowing to you, because you could think that you only had to use the Instagram app, but there's 30 plus apps that are available for Instagram story building alone. There's, you know, more apps on video editing. There are more apps for photo editing. So a lot of people are now using this time to create the platforms and brands that they wanted to build on their own, but just never really had the time, because as much as people want to have things that they own, people always want to be eating, right? You always want to have that time when it's more feast and not famine. And that's really what entrepreneurship, freelance life, artist life is about, feast or famine. So, you know, I always think about church when they say, bring your tithes to the storehouse so you can have a bountiful harvest. It's like most times you're just trying to take all the jobs that are, again, either bank building or brand building that will allow you the moments when you can pause and say, what can I do with all the things that I've done and the money that I've built to create something of resonance that then appeals to me. So, you know, inspiration is really coming from, most of my clients don't spend a lot of time on Instagram, believe it or not. You know, everyone else is on Instagram. And what happens is you have peripheral influence. So you then become inspired by the person that has maybe 10,000 more followers than you. And you're saying that, oh, everything they do is pink, white, and blue. So now my feed now needs to have some type of color grid. You know, a lot of these brands, I think probably back in the early 2000s, there was an agency that will remain nameless. They are no longer in business, but they created websites for companies. All of their websites for the companies they were working for looked the complete same. And it was like, well, how is there any brand? It's almost like we're in this like disruptor phase where brands are disruptors, and all the disruptor brands use the same font. They use the same 3 colors. Their ads are by the same agency. It's just like, and you're like, what are you selling? But like all these brands look alike, right? So now it's like, are we creative, or are we now just products of creation? And so my clients are now just taking the time to say, this is what we're doing. And a lot of brands just aren't activating in the space out of sensitivity. You know, really important to note that right now is not the time that a brand is looking to give someone $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 to create content on social media. Because what are they saying? Go out and buy this? No. Most, you know, a lot of our clients are in the CPG space, which is consumer packaged goods. You don't want to see somebody putting on makeup saying, buy this Neutrogena or buy this L'Oreal. You'd be like, I'm trying to buy bread and milk. So that's, we have a lot of divine timeout time to figure out what's really resonating, and why a lot of my clients are just building community off of therapy too. A lot of clients are becoming more transparent about how they're feeling internally and mentally. And that is building community, because people, again, have always just seen them be beautiful and show up at events, but now they're talking about mental health, not wanting to work. And that's creating a lot more transparency, that post-corona, people will be like, I love her because she gave me the real when it was time to be real.
Thank you for that, Ernest. So Jane, we have a couple questions coming in. And you may be able to answer this one, but I'm just reading from our Q&A section here. We're having to source a lot of our creativity from being inside now, or looking to our screens. And Natalie talked about, you know, how she stopped at the tree and sort of evaluated that. But the physical and physiological effects of screens sometimes feel like it's hindering this person's creativity or becoming too stimulating. Do you think after this, you know, after we get on the other side of this and done, creators will be taking a more interactive IRL approach and spend less time in the content? Oh, I like this. And spend less time in the comment section and more time creating.
I 100% think that that's true, because right now, even personally, I'm longing to go out and make those connections with my friends and my family, and I can't because I want to be respectful of everybody in society, right? We want to make sure that everyone is safe. What's happening right now is absolutely unprecedented, and it's one of those things where we have to understand that our patterns are going to change, but on the flip side, the positive to all of this is that I feel that we are going to be much more connected on a spiritual level, on a personal level with one another versus this comment section that you're talking about. It's one of those things where I see people all the time when we're in a restaurant having a meal, and our rule is put our phones away, right? And so, although it's super hard to do, but the problem is that we are sitting there across from another person and still on the phone because we're connecting with people on the phone digitally more than we are in life. And so when after all of this is said and done, I have really good and high hope for humanity. And hoping that everyone can just look outside and be a little bit more intuitive with the inspiration that's around them versus what they're seeing from other people.
Yeah, that's great.
Right.
We are ingesting, and Gianni, someone just popped in a question for you. I just wanted to say one thing. Our agency is just ingesting and taking in a lot of white papers and toolkits and webinars. And as you can imagine, we take all of this information in and we distill it and, output information for our clients. But I saw one somewhere, and I don't remember where it was, but it was, when we get on the other side of this, folks are going to say, did they help.com? Like, that is the question. Did they help.com? And another one that said acts over ads. So, the way that people, when you talk about, Ernest, when you talk about consumer packaged goods versus, buying bread and milk, people are really reevaluating, the hierarchy of needs right now and where those needs are. But as we think about creatives, sometimes creativity is an essential need for creatives. I know personally for myself as a creative, and I'm a creator of, business and words and communication. If I am not creative and I feel deflated, I don't perform. And so I usually, when you talk about the pause, Natalie, pause for me has always been like take a weekend, unplug so that I can be inspired. But I know that now, I am working all day because we're doing crisis comms for clients. My travel time has been taken out. I'm not jumping on any, obviously planes, trains, and automobiles. So it has given me some time back where I am able to reimagine things. And I do think that we're in this space of reimagining what our lives will be like and what our processes will be moving forward. Gianni, someone said earlier you talked about, I think it says, about hoarding art versus churning out content. TikTok is an okay, so somebody's responding to your TikTok. TikTok is interesting in that sense because it goes as quickly as it comes and the algorithms seem more by luck than, say, IG. And maybe this is for you, Gianni, and anyone else that wants to answer, but the question is, any input on building a community or following with more of a randomized format? So I think the idea here is, how can folks build community during this time? And specifically,
well, I think building community starts with, I guess, the comment section, because a lot of the times those are the people that are directly, you know what I mean? Like those are, you can touch those people first. So if you're talking to them, then you're already getting them in the, in the process of understanding that, okay, you're going to respond. I think from there, it can go to other formats, and then that's how we get into the emails. Because the thing about it is, you build a community, you have to have their emails, because you have to be able to, like, not necessarily blast them, but just keep them updated with things you have going on. Right. So if you start it is just like, you just have to start, putting out comments, just responding to people and having conversations with them slowly but surely, because you're gaining their trust. And then people are more apt to, sign up for a newsletter or follow you to another platform and watch you do what you do there. And you know what I mean? But it always has to be a way where they come back to a link that you you post. That way they can come to your platform and you can get their information. So I feel like that's one of the ways. I know it's other ways, but that's what just comes to my head.
Yeah, Patrice, were you going to jump in?
Yeah, I was also going to add on to that and say to go, similar to what Gianni was saying, go to where the conversations or the communities that you're sort of attracted to or are inspired by and want to create a similar community, go to where they are right now, whether that's like in Instagram in the comments or on Twitter. That's something I did a little bit recently. I'm not a big Twitter person because I feel like I'm not like quippy, but I've been doing it more now because of the newsletter. But I'll notice, like, for example, like Nicole Hannah-Jones, who reports on race for New York Times, she'll do like these threads, right, where she'll talk about different topics. And she, like about 2 weeks ago, right after I launched the newsletter, she was talking about the racial disparities among the COVID-19 cases and deaths and within the Black community. And I noticed that a bunch of people were tweeting. So I, right up under it, I was like, yeah, like, that's why I started this newsletter. Like, feel free, everybody, to check it out and consider subscribing. And that got like, not the thousands of likes and retweets that like she got, because she has way more followers, but a lot of people are engaged in that comment section and in the responses in that thread. And so a lot of people found out about the newsletter and signed up from her thread because I left that tweet. So you don't always have to be the person with like a ton of followers. Another example is, something big that came from that tweet. There's, oh my gosh, what's her name? It's so bad. Oh my gosh. Okay, so a young woman who works for LA Times, I believe, on the social team, she saw that tweet, and she has a newsletter where she focuses on media and journalism and technology. And she was like, hey, can I spotlight your newsletter in my newsletter? And it's called The Intersection, and you guys check it out, intersection.substack.com. And
we'll put it in the chat, everyone.
Yeah,
we'll put it in the chat.
And she featured me, and I was like, oh, this is so dope, thank you. It was the first sort of like spotlight on the newsletter. And she tweeted it, and a bunch of people saw it from her tweet. And then Neiman Labs, which is like this huge journalism organization, they, I guess, spoke with her and reposted that interview. And then the co-founder of Substack saw it. So today, like, my newsletter was in the top 50 of like Substack newsletters, which was crazy. And it all happened because I left.
Amazing.
A similar thing happened. Yeah. That is amazing. Like, a similar thing happened to me. I was on Twitter, and I just wanted to help someone in need because I know how hard it is to get art supplies. So I just said, I just tweeted something, and I said, I'll give you $100 in art supply. Just leave your work, leave your college transcripts. And I think that was it, in your Cash App tag. So people started sharing, and it was hard for me to figure out who to pick. So I picked like 2 people. But what happened after the thread, a lot more people started sharing their work anyway. They said, well, I lost, I was too late for the contest, but here's my work anyway. And, the thread went kind of viral, but what happened was a lot of the artists in the threads started clicking on other people's art, and they started talking. And it all started from me wanting to just be, do my due diligence to just get to a person in need, and it turned into a thing. And I was like, wow, like, this really started something, because now I have a lot more artists that I can look at and look at their work, and like the same for me. Maybe some people were introduced to me that weren't introduced to me before, but now they were able to even meet other artists and collaborate with them potentially just from a tweet that I put it up. And I think that's like the most powerful thing from that. They'll remember that.
So hold on, we have 4 minutes left, and I want to get everybody to do like a quick wrap. So there are 2 questions. If you can answer one of the questions. Speaking of TikTok, the whole I'm bored in the house and I'm in the house bored. People said, well, one, how does boredom contribute to creativity? And the other question is, please tell us how to stay productive, because a lot of folks are talking about their routines, and you don't have routines right now. If you guys could give any tips for creatives on how to stay productive, and let's just do a quick around the Zoom. Everybody give a rapid answer.
Okay.
I'm going to start. For productivity, do this. Like, put yourself together a little bit. I mean, it puts you in a different headspace completely. I I am the type of person that puts a t-shirt on and sweats on, and I will traipse around the house and do nothing all day until I have my hair done, makeup on, and something nice to feel good in. And then that productivity helps me sit in the front of the computer, do whatever I need to do, and it just changes the mindset a little bit. And I think that's where it starts for me, is the mindset.
Productivity for me, I would say the best thing for people to do is if you've been living in your spaces for a long time, or if you haven't, change them around, like change things around. Sometimes like a new space can invigorate and give you like more energy to stay up later and do things, you know, it just puts you in a different headspace. So definitely switch things around, and honestly just like try to adhere to some type of schedule, even something that could like build your body up, like work out, you know, just get your blood moving. Stand up, stretch, and like do that every day. It's important.
Awesome.
Write down 3 things you want to do or have done. And what you'll do is, even if you just do it for 7 days straight, just have a piece of paper and write down, these are the 3 things I want to do. Even if it's just watching a TV show, brushing hair and brushing your teeth, you'll start to see over time how accomplished you feel by seeing the things that you have done, that you'll want to add more things to it. And it doesn't become just a checklist of things I might do. These are the 3 things I'm going to do today, that you'll start to add to that, and it'll build momentum to want to do more things.
Awesome. Love that. Natalie and Patrice?
I would say just acknowledge and understand that if you're being unproductive, that's valid too. And if you don't feel a desire or need to be doing something, or if you're afraid to do something, that's valid. But that you can also still do something while still feeling that way. Because I feel like I'm a terrible writer. Like, I feel like I'm not good enough most of the time. But then I sometimes just have to sit with that and say, okay, that's a valid feeling, but it's not necessarily fact. And we're going to just do this anyway and see what happens. So, yeah.
Awesome.
The single most misconception about productivity is when people avoid making schedules. So creativity loves constraints, and you absolutely need structure. So it's this misnomer that creativity is about doing whatever you feel like. You actually need the structure. So I'm on day 2. I just finished day 2 of a commitment for the next 30 days. So it'll eventually become a habit of I have a 2-hour ritual. I wake up at 6 a.m., which means I have to be in bed by 10, is falling asleep by 10:30. I'm not allowing myself to hit snooze. And by between 6 to 8, I have prepared myself hygienically. I have meditated and prayed. I've done some stretching, and I've done my first, I call it work sprints, sprint of work at 7, and my next work sprint at 8, have some water, and then go about my day. But creating those schedules is really important. The last thing I just wanted to say, and I just think this is I just loved hearing people talk about building community, and this word followers kept coming up. One of my hopes post-COVID-19 is that we really understand, we've put so much emphasis in the past about how many followers you have, followers, and we have forgotten the other
It
side.
doesn't matter.
Yeah,
But
true.
the other part of followers is leadership. And so a lot of what you all have shared is different ways that you're leading, the provocative questions and content and help. And I think that is a really important aspect of followership, is that there has to be leadership. And I think that will be a really positive outcome all the time we're spending on the screen and social media and that sort of thing.
Awesome. Well, I want to be mindful of people's time, but one question came in, so I'm going to give this to you guys as a call to action. Okay, so I'm going to read this question, and maybe after this, you'll post this on your stories, or maybe you can give a little bit of a recap. But the people want to know, what are some ways to monetize from the value you're providing? Because there's some people that still need to earn money during these times.
Right.
What are the ways that you can monetize from the value you're providing to your community during these times without feeling like you're taking from the little that they may have, especially as creatives? So if you guys want to post Sky Blue Summit, want to do a little story about it and tag us, we're happy to reshare this with our networks. And you can tag at Sky Blue Media and hashtag Sky Blue Summit, and we'll share all of your responses. But We appreciate your thoughts and your creativity here. I thank you all for joining the second.
Thanks for having us.
The second
Thank
part
you.
of Sky Blue Summit. We really appreciate you guys. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you guys so much.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Yeah.